So we're joined here on Next by CDOT's Executive Director, Shailen Bhatt. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
So CDOT's supporting this plan to give self-driving cars more access to Colorado's roads, and we get asked a lot, who's looking out for the safety of Colorado's drivers? Who's in that position?
And I would say that we are. And the reason that we, and that I personally am such a big proponent of connected vehicles and autonomous vehicles is because, in America last year, 35,092 people lost their lives. In Colorado, 605 people lost their lives on our roadways. That's a 10% increase the last few years. Over 90% of those crashes caused by human error. And so we want to create a positive, safe environment for companies to come here and test those technologies so that we can be on the leading edge of this. But it is up to us. When we had the self-driving truck, the other companies that come here, they have to come and prove it to us that it is safe. And I am willing to entertain some risk on the connected autonomous vehicle side for the known risk where sleepy drivers, drunk drivers, drug drivers, inattentive drivers, are posing already on the roads.
So let me ask you, if you guys are the safety check and balance, can you recall the last time that you told industry no? What you're asking to do or try is too dangerous, we won't do it.
Yeah, so I'll give you the auto self-driving truck.
This is the beer truck that ran on I-25.
I prefer to call it the world's first commercial delivery by an autonomous vehicle, AKA the beer run.
Okay.
As it's known in wider sectors. When they first came to us, there was a lot of back and forth between us. The State Patrol was involved. Obviously, one of the first questions the chief of the State Patrol asked in the meeting was, how do I pull over a self-driving vehicle? And I was like, it's a good question. Somebody should know that answer, right? And so there was an iterative process back and forth, and they had to prove to us, I won't say beyond a shadow of a doubt, but beyond a reasonable doubt that this thing would work. I followed that truck, at 1 o'clock in the morning from Fort Collins down to the Springs. Nothing like watching 50,000 pounds of beer in your career go down the highway at 55 miles an hour.
You're telling me, but yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, though. There's also the issue of psychology around self-driving cars. And you talk about all the people who are killed by people's actions on the roads. Mm-hmm. And we have such an acceptance as a society of people being killed by people, and we're terrified of people being killed by machines.
Yes, there is that whole Terminator, I guess psychology that's burned in everybody's mind. Look, when the Tesla had the self-driving accident or crash, I don't use the term accident, crash in Florida, everybody was like, oh my goodness, this person died, and ignored the 100 other deaths on the road that day. Yesterday or the other day, the Uber vehicle had a crash. We, for some reason, hold machines to a higher standard, and I get that. That's part of the psychology. But if you just do an experiment, if you're driving tonight, look at all the people, look at the cars that don't start when the light turns green. Look at the people who are driving 70, 80 miles an hour, looking down at a phone and doing things. We talk about distracted driving. Driving is a distraction from what people want to be doing these days on their phones.
There are machines driving cars right now, but they're texting. They're not actually driving the cars. So CDOT supports this plan to raise Colorado's sales tax to pay for some infrastructure improvements. This is a big plan with some big promises. Can you tell people how much of Colorado's infrastructure need will be met if they vote yes, if this gets to the ballot in November? 90% of our needs, half of our needs, 10% of our needs?
We often talk about we have $1 billion a year shortfall for the next 20 years. Under this plan, we're probably going to get about $300 million or just north of there when it all shakes out. And then we're going to use that to bond. So we're probably going to go out and deliver around $3 billion worth of projects. So what I tell people is that we're going to get a widening of I-25 to the north, up towards Fort Collins. We're going to get a widening of I-25 south. We're going to get rid of that 2-lane section between Denver and Colorado Springs. We're going to get another lane, an express lane going up to the mountains to help relieve traffic there. There are literally projects across the state. So it is not a panacea. It doesn't solve every problem, but it is a big chunk out of our need.
It sounded to me like it's not even 50% of the need, but it gives you money to do projects that you otherwise wouldn't be able to do.
It is difficult in, we have put this investment for so long that it's hard to go out and say, we're going to raise a sales tax by, multi-digits, like 5% or something like that, or we're going to raise the gas tax like 20 cents. So I think it's a bipartisan incremental approach that really moves the ball down the field.
The Bustang service, which is the state-subsidized bus service along I-25 from Fort Collins to Colorado Springs and then on 70 from Denver to Glenwood Springs, could that ever stand on its own, or is it always going to require subsidy?
No, the very best transit properties in the country have a fare box recovery of around 50%. Right, so that means for $1 you're putting in, you're getting 50 cents back. And those are like San Francisco, where you have a lot of density and rail and all that kind of stuff. I think from our perspective, we had, and when I was in Delaware, it used to be 16%. So we're exceeding our ridership, we're exceeding our fare box recovery, but you don't run transit to break even or to run to make a profit. You do it to take cars off the road. You do it to provide choice for people who don't necessarily have the ability to drive a car.
We've heard a lot of anger from community activists in North Denver who don't like the I-70 viaduct project. Is that a done deal? Is that happening? We
got our record of decision from the Federal Highway Administration, so that is a significant milestone. That means that the Federal Highway Administration is certifying that we have followed all the rules with regard to the EPA, the water, the air, everything that comes along with it. Now, there is still one more challenge, which is the legal challenge, which means that we'll probably face a legal challenge in court at some point between now and in the next few months that says, hey, we don't believe you did X, Y, and Z, and then it'll be up to a judge to determine whether we did that. And my guarantee is we followed the law for the 14 years up to this point. We'll continue to follow the law, and we expect to go to construction next year on that project.
Knowing your interest and your expertise in transportation, we talk a lot about the A-line train around here. What do you see as a transportation professional when you look at the struggles of that train line 1 year in, still having to go to the Federal Railroad Administration hat in hand every few months to ask for an extension to work out the bugs?
Well, I have a vested interest in it working well because a lot of people don't distinguish between RTD and CDOT, right? So I get calls, why isn't your train working?
It's a plane, train, or an automobile, so it falls under
my fault, right? And karma would prevent me from criticizing another agency. I think there's two things. I think people have an expectation that the train should work. I would think what people are less aware of is that it's a public-private partnership, and the costs of getting this thing right are on the private sector. So this is actually a good deal for taxpayers. I think it's up and running like 98% of the time. I rely on it to go to the airport. So yeah, there are times when there's lightning or whatever it might be, or the gates aren't up there, but this is a public-private partnership, and I think that the public sector is getting good value for the money in terms of if the private sector didn't get it right, then the private sector's got to make it right.
CDOT Executive Director Shailen Bhatt, thank you so much for coming by. We'd love to have you here again.
Thank you so much.